More on this is Jill Schlesinger, CBS News senior business analyst. Jill, there's been a lot of talk about the global fallout, but wow, the markets yesterday really took a tumble. What's happening here in the U.S.?
Well, our markets were down about 3 to 3.5% yesterday. I would tell you that that's actually a win based on what was going on in the middle of the night. It looked very ugly. The first thing I did at 1 o'clock in the morning was say, hey, when do those circuit breakers kick in? Because we were down 5-6% overnight. It was looking bad. But as you might expect, in a seismic, unexpected outcome, all of the money goes away from risky stuff like stocks and emerging markets and your European stocks into safer havens. That would be cash, U.S. Treasuries, Japanese 10-year bonds, German bonds, which are now paying a negative return, and as well as gold, which was up about 4.5%. It was ugly, but it could have been a lot worse.
Jill, we're looking at years of uncertainty now that this will unleash, and we know what happens when there's uncertainty out there. Businesses stop spending, banks don't like to lend as much. What is there a potential of a global recession here?
I think so, and I think that I don't say that lightly because I think we should really take a lesson from what just happened. There were too many people who just banked on, okay, they're going to remain. Let's prepare for all outcomes. So absolutely, could we see a recession? Yes. I am less concerned about the UK, which may go into a recession, obviously. Might be a lot of inflation there. I'm more concerned with the European Union. They just lost a huge economy, and now at 27 members, we could see them slip into a recession if the UK slows down, if the European Union slows down. The rest of the world is going to slow down. Maybe we're only down by 0.2% in our GDP. We're only growing by 2%, guys. So when we see something that's called an exogenous shock, that's a fun thing to say. That means something weird happens overseas. It can impact our economy. It can impact our markets. People should be very careful. I agree that we shouldn't be like reactive and start messing around with your portfolios too much. That said, let's be clear. This is a seismic shock that we have not seen since the financial crisis.
Right. And so you got to keep your eye on things because it's going to get bumpy from here. Jill Schlesinger, thank you so much.
I feel like you can
All right, Shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. I want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, because that's where I learned this truth from, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Yahweh is the true name of the God of Israel. Yahweh Shai is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one and only true name is Yahweh Shai. And pretty much, I just wanted to do this video because I just did a video, but there was a lot of points I was hitting at, but it would have made the video, extremely long. Most of our people, they have short attention spans, so I kind of wanted to split it up. But the point that I was making in the video was that the Brexit, when it does finally happen, and it will happen according to Bible prophecy, when it happens, this is going to affect everybody. So I'm going to show you, well, based off of what you heard in the video, I'm going to show you how the Brexit is going to affect all countries, all nations. It's going to affect all economies, world economies, everything. Everybody will be affected by this. This could lead to hyperinflation out there in the UK. It could lead to a recession out there in the UK. This is really going to hit people hard, so to speak. All right, metaphorically speaking. So I had typed this in. I typed in what Brexit could mean for the U.S. economy. So I'm just going to skim through this, right? It says, after 3 long years of negotiations and the possibility of a no deal, Brexit is rising every day. Because what was the information based off of the article that the brother Kassad found was what? That they're going to leave out of the EU October 31st. That's what the Brexit is. That's the UK leaving out of the EU. Whether they finalize that Article 50, which is going to seal a deal, I don't know. But it's not looking good for the United Kingdom, especially their economy. And it's not looking good for the Edomites, which is the so-called white race in the scriptures. It's not looking good for your rulership, all right? And what we're witnessing is a downfall of an empire. That's what we are living through. These are the type of times that we're in. So it says, economic economists have predicted what it could mean for the U.S. economy and its financial markets when the U.K. does finally leave the EU. Because when the UK does leave the EU and they actually leave, this is going to affect the stock markets. All right, and this happened when they was talking about this years ago. You know, you had the stock market, it literally froze. You know, it was stuck in red. The Dow was a red. You know, investors were scared. So this could cause a stock market crash. This can cause a global stock market crash. All right, and this leads to what? Jobs being cut as well. And I'm going to show you in these different articles, the information I'm going to bring out through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. So it says a current leadership race to succeed Prime Minister. All right, this is old information, right? So let's look at some more. So this is another article, right? What would a hard Brexit mean for the United States? It says if the British fail to negotiate a soft exit from the EU, American car manufacturers, drug makers, and banks could all suffer. You already have banks filing for bankruptcy. Now let's go down to the list. Let me see. Scroll down. All right, so this is just a list. Just to give you a little small example of what is going to be affected, right? So it says banks and the end of passporting. One of the reasons London became the EU's largest financial center and the primary conduit to Europe for U.S. banks is because of something known as passporting. Passporting allows a company granted regularity permission to undertake certain activities in one member state to do the same business in every other EU country. In practice, this has meant a U.S. financial company could simply open up an office in London to have access to the entire market. UK-based employees were free to work in any other country in the EU. But a hard Brexit would change that. U.S. banks with UK subsidiaries may need to obtain a new license from regulators in every EU country they operate in, which would disrupt operations. All right. While this is a problem, American companies in many industries are facing, including car and drug manufacturers, it would affect financial firms most because they operate in a sector that's entirely service-based, which means labor is their biggest risk. If employees can't travel and do their jobs freely throughout the EU market, the cost could be significant. All right. Number two, what's going to be affected by a Brexit? Auto industry and thick borders. U.S. car makers have their own problems. Auto companies such as Ford have invested billions of dollars in UK manufacturing plants, which give them tariff-free access to other European assembly plants. Ford has located its engine production in the UK, which needs to be freely connected to plants across Europe that assemble vehicles. The growing possibility of a hard Brexit is stoking worries among American car makers that production could be severely disrupted as parts distributed among the EU members suffer greater UK border delays and currency risks. It says, let me see. All right, now let's go to this one. Drug makers and face new hurdles. While the problem of dealing with potentially two different sets of standards will certainly affect companies in other industries such as car makers, it's significant worry for pharmaceutical manufacturers who face strict laws for selling their drugs in the EU. The European Medicines Evaluation Agency, which is the EU's equivalent to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, allows pharmaceutical companies to submit a single application to obtain authorization to sell a drug throughout the common market. Since its inception, the agency has been located in London, which led many U.S. drug makers to base their EU operations in the UK. The agency is now relocating to Amsterdam, putting foreign drug markets drug marketers in a bind. It says, all right, so that's pretty much it. So that's what's gonna be affected. All right, and then I got this other article here. It says Brexit, no deal panic, EU to lose 1 million jobs and 228 billion pounds if Britain rejects deal. So this is an old article, but this still applies to today. All right. It says EU leaders face 1.2 million job losses in event of no deal Brexit, warns report. So this is going to affect a lot of people, man. This is going to be devastating for Britain's economy and world economies. This is going to affect car manufacturers, job losses, the drug administration, passports, you name it, man. Everybody's going to be affected by this. So I'm going to show you how this ties in with Bible prophecy. All right. So let's get into it. Now, this is Zephaniah 1 and 10. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that there shall be the noise of a cry from the fish gate, and a howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hills. And like us brothers at Great Millstone, we refer this to what? The stock market crash. Because that's what's coming. And there's going to be a lot of key things that's going to play into that. The impeachment of Donald Trump, the Brexit, everything, you name it. So this is what's coming, a global economic collapse, which the Bible describes as the day of Jacob's trouble, which involves martial law, the hour of temptation, the mark of the beast, which is the RFID chip implant being implemented on the people. There's going to be a lot of key things that's going to institute a global recession. Remember, the scriptures say he calls of all, both small and great. All right? Meaning that there's going to be a mandatory event that's going to take place on the planet Earth that's going to have the elites chip their citizens in all these different countries through these different governments. So this Brexit is going to do a lot of damage. And it's just showing the downfall of the Edomite Empire. This is Matthew 12 and 26. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall his kingdom stand? His kingdom not standing. All right. The relationships that America built with these countries throughout the years is failing. Nations are now leaving NATO because what? Because they realize that they're just doing the bidding of America. So this is 2 Ezra 6 and 9. Because the Edomites, they're divided against themselves. 2 Ezra 6 and 9 for Esau. Esau is the forefather of the so-called white race seed line, right? So-called white man seed line. For Esau is the end of the world, meaning his rulership, his empire. And Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. Who comes out of Jacob? Yahweh Shai. All right? Yahweh Shai is going to establish his kingdom, which according to Romans 8 and 17, the elect of the nation of Israel is going to be joint heirs with him. That's who Yahweh Shai is coming back to save inside these so-called UFOs. All right? That's how we're going to receive salvation, through the so-called UFOs. The elect of the children of Israel. So once the so-called white man's empire goes down, then Jacob is going to rule. All right, which is the children of Israel, beginning with Yahweh Shai and the elect of the nation of Israel. So you should be looking forward to this empire going down. The Brexit, signs of a recession, you should be happy. Shouldn't be scared, because these are the type of times we're living in. Now this is Daniel 2. I'm just going to get to the point. Daniel 2 and I'm going to start at 31. It says, thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image, which I don't have the image, the picture of it right now, but I'm going to break it down for you through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. A great image, this great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible, because Nebuchadnezzar, he had this dream, all right? And in the dream, it showed a figure of a man, and each body part showed a particular heathen kingdom ruling for a certain amount of years. All right. So through this figure of a man, we're at the 10 toes. That's where we're at today. Because the so-called white race, the Edomites, they're the last nation that's going to rule before the kingdom of heaven is established. All right. So none of Nebuchadnezzar's astrologers, his magicians, the different witches, none of these people could interpret the dream, but Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, displaying his power through his prophet Daniel, was able to do that. All right. So it says, verse 32, this image head was of fine gold. The fine gold is talking about the Neo-Assyrian Babylonian Empire. All right. The Neo-Babylonian Empire. His breast and his arms are silver, which is talking about the Medo-Persian Empire. It was a joint empire. All right. You had the Medes, you had the Persians. So you had the Medo-Persian Empire. His belly and his thighs of brass, referring to the Greek Empire. His legs of iron, referring to the ancient Roman Empire. His feet of iron, it says his feet part of iron and part of clay. And that's where we're at today. Because what you need to understand is America and the EU is pretty much an extension of the ancient Roman Empire. Now the ancient Roman Empire was destroyed, but through something called the Treaty of Rome, it came back into power in the forms of America and the EU. That's why America, as well as the EU, their judicial system is based off of draconian law, based off of the ancient Roman Empire's setup, the way how they ran things. All right, that's why this system is based off of ancient Roman law, because this is the ancient Roman Empire all over again. But it wouldn't be called, ancient Rome. It would be called America and the EU. And how do I know that? Well, you read Revelation 13:3. It tells you the deadly wound was healed, meaning that Rome came back into power. So it says, so verse 34, thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, was smote the image upon the feet that were of iron and clay, and break them into pieces. Because what's going to happen after World War III, or pretty much during World War III, once the nuclear missiles are shot off and these nations fulfill the prophecy and words of the Lord by destroying Babylon the Great, which is America, and destroying the state of Israel, you're going to have a quote-unquote alien invasion, which is going to be the second coming, or really, Yahushua, he came a bunch of times, but it's going to be the coming of our Lord and Savior, Yahushua. All right? That's why I said on his head it was many crowns. And proof of that is mentioned in Revelation chapter 19, verses 14, through 19, 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, Revelation chapter 12, verses 7 and 8. All throughout the scriptures, it tells you that. So it says, and break them into pieces. Then was the iron and the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain that filled the whole earth. All right? Because after this, you're going to have Jacob that's going to rule. Now this is Revelation 17 and 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. That's why you got all these different nations leaving out of NATO, and even nations that's leaving out of the EU. Why? Because ultimately they hate America. It says, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So these different nations leaving out of NATO, in the EU, this is going to lead to the beast destroying America, which the beast is NATO in the EU. They're going to destroy America with thermonuclear missiles because they don't like America. America is being exposed for being a tyrant on the planet Earth. So you got to put a tyrant down. It says, shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For the Most High put in their hearts, Proverbs 21:1, right? Let you know that there's no free will, that the Heavenly Father is controlling all these nations to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. So these are the times we're living in. Hopefully this was edifying. Shalom.